Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Navadvip Bhavataranga ki jai, Srila Sachidananda Moy Thakur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Narasingha Bhagavan ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai, Gaur Praman. So good afternoon to all of you. Pranam, welcome. And we are today continuing with our series of lectures on Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda's prayers, Raga-marga prayers to Sri Bhagavan. Today we are in our last meeting in that connection. Tomorrow we will have some Q&A. But today we are officially arriving at the very last verse of these 5 that Sri Thakur Bhaktivinoda reveals in his pursuit of the Raga-marga, at least as an example for us. He's already there, but trying to set this type of a reference for us on how to address Narasingha Bhagavan in our quest for Raga Bhakti. So today we are in the 5th verse, but some brief words regarding yesterday. For those of you who have not been there, almost all of you have been there, but some of you have not, and especially for those who have been there, we can make some recaps. So there, Thakur Bhaktivinoda envisioned Nrsimhadev blessing him, putting his hand on his head, like as he did with Prahlad. But in this case, to Thakur Bhaktivinoda in the context of the Raga-marga, and saying, okay, may you live happily, peacefully in Sri Navadvip, and worship Sri Radha and Krishna in Navadvip. Sri Gaur-Gadadhar ki jai. May you have attachment for their names, and may all obstacles in your path be relinquished by the grace of the sadhus, of my sadhus. Many important points again in all of these concepts and words and sentences. Lots to unpack. We try to do something in that connection, trying to develop this notion of how the sadhus are the Kripa Shakti of Bhagavan. The Srimhadev cleans up obstacles, but that how does take place in practice, in our daily situation, by the association with sadhus, and by the proximity to the sadhus. And proximity, as we know, is not physical proximity. Srila Maharaj used to say, in the body of the Guru, there are so many germs and bacteria. It's so intimately related to him. So close, so much proximity is there, but those elements are just taking energy from the person, are not contributing to the cause. So how much proximity is there? You follow? So real proximity is in terms of what we call anugatya, or following into the footsteps in a substantial way, surrender, dedication to what all that person represents, even if externally we are not next to him in every picture, if you will. The sadhu may be there, you maybe want to be there next to in every picture, but that doesn't guarantee proximity in the terms we want. Krishna in the Gita says to Arjuna, Tad vidhi pranipatena. Pranipatena means surrender. But Srila Prabhupada interestingly translates the word approach. You have to approach the spiritual master, but the term is surrender to a spiritual master. But what does it mean, surrender? Approach. So he really very nicely make that point. I mean, what does it mean to approach your guru? Surrender. If there's no surrender, there's no proximity again. So proximity, closeness is in terms of saranagati or anugatya. So that's how, if you will, the spirit of Nrsimhadev, the relinquishing of all obstacles, will take place in our life, in our pursuit of the Raga-marga. So we spoke about that. We spoke about the very deep esoteric truths of Gaur-Gadadhar a little bit. The concept of Navadvip as non-different from Vrindavan. How we are to inhabit that Navadvip. Also something interesting that we may add to this idea of residing in Navadvip, which is the abode of Kirtan, specifically Godrum, the island of Kirtan, where Thakur Bhaktivinoda lives and eternally, and in the context of which he's pronouncing these prayers, we have to invoke necessarily the third verse of Sikshastakam, which really sets the standard of what's Kirtan about. Kirtaniya Sadahari. What does it mean to be constantly engaged in Kirtan? Trinada Pisunichena, Tarora Pisa Ishnona, Amanina Manadina, Kirtaniya Sadahari. So, Kirtaniya Sadahari means this verse speaks about residing constantly in Srinam, inhabiting Srinam. Srinam is a place of residence, if you will. We are to find our eternal corner, place there. It's not just a sound, but it's a portal, as we say, an eternal destiny. So when we say residing in Navadip, Navadip Godrum is the abode of Kirtan, and Kirtan is a place to reside in. It's not just some nice songs, but it's a location, transcendental location where I have to constantly reside. And the third verse, of course, is so crucial. I mean, if as much as we start to understand this verse as a place to enter, we will understand, okay, this is a stage to attain, and it's not just a tool that I can invoke whenever I need. Because it's not that, okay, now I'll be more humble than a blade of grass. It doesn't work like that. It's not like, okay, I'll press the Tarora Pisa Ishuna button. Now Snichina, now Amanina. It's not working. No, it's not that. Whenever I need the tool, I invoke that. It's something, it's a place to attain. And to attain in order to reside there. It's not just to attain to help me in this moment, I need this. Okay, now, thank you so much. You can remain there. No, it's something to embrace from tip to toe. So for most of us, that's a stage to attain. Third verse of Sikshastakam, Nishta. The Srimhadev has a lot of work to do with us in that connection. a lot of cleansing the land, preparing the land for further and further things. And so Srimhadev is there to help us and to further advance in the conception of this third verse. The more you embrace this third verse, the more you start to think, I will say, more in third person than in first person. Generally, we tend to see words in first person, I. And everything accommodates after that single letter, I, and the whole word unfolds as a result of that. Around has to locate as a ladder. No. Eventually, as you advance, you start to think in terms of not I, but you, second person, we could say, you, Krishna, or he, she, they. Not so much third person, first person, sorry. Without trying to be main characters of the whole story. And so gradually, we will enter into this land where we will feel ourselves. I'm just witnessing the movements of the puppeteer, and I'm just like being mystically possessed. We need to be mystically possessed. That's what it's all about here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking from that vantage point of view. He's mystically possessed here as well. He's not walking from one Lila style to another in his knowledge Baba Taranga, as we said yesterday, but he's just rolling to whatever this mystical possession is taking him. Rolling on the ground, and I arrived at Nisrin Papali, and then I woke up after, and I'm there, and I'm here, and I'm there. So let's go to today's verse, fifth verse of prayers to Nrsimhadev. This is verse number 40 in the Navadvip Bhavataranga. So Bengali says like this. Ye boli kabe mora mastakahu para Shriya Shri Charana Harsi Dhari Beshwar Amani Jugala Premi Sattvika Vikare Dharayalu Tivoyami Shri Nisrimhadware. So Sri Thakur Bhaktivinoda say, when stop there. Try to ruminate on that word. When, and it's a long when. These guys know when. So they're charged with longing and death. It's a real when. It's not just when. when Krishna will give me his mercy, let's continue doing some nonsense. No, the when. And until you find a reply to that when, you won't feel I can do something else. when that day will be mine. When he will cross the path of my eyes. When. If you say when Krishna will cross the path of my eyes, Jagannath Sham Nayana Patagami Bhava Tume, when he will, it means I'm totally attentive for that to happen. It's not, when Jagannath will cross the path of my eyes and I will play some video games meanwhile. And whenever he appears, okay, you're there, thank you. Gradually, you are really there for that to happen. You have to be really in the moment, attentive, waiting for whatever revelation has to take place. There's a lot, we will speak today about that a little bit, about prayer and about what's the price of prayer and what's expected from us in that connection and how we have to really be willing to wait. And meanwhile we're waiting, we are increasing our longing. That's how we should wait, and that's how we should pray. It's not just idle, do you say idle waiting? Idle, thank you. Idle waiting, like, okay, meanwhile I do something else. Yeah, something else you can do. You can throw more fuel into the fire of your longing. That's the real waiting. If not, you are not waiting. You are just distracted and entertaining yourself. So if you love someone and you're waiting for that love to come, I mean, it's like, try to imagine, you get more and more absorbed in when that will happen during your waiting. That's a description of, for example, there's one state of Sri Radha Thakurani, which is Vasana Janika, which means when the heroine is preparing everything for Krishna to come, decorating all the kunj and decorating everything and herself, waiting for Krishna to come. And Krishna is not coming, and waiting for Krishna to. And meanwhile, preparing everything and increasing the longing. And Krishna may come, or Krishna may. I mean, at one point he will come, but in the process of not coming, the longing reaches like higher and higher peaks. So it's important to learn how to wait, and not take the cell phone meanwhile, basically. So when, first word here in the verse, let's go to the word by word. First, I mean, it's not the first word, but in the order of conception, first idea here is kavi. Kavi, this is very important. Bengali for when. Kavi Havi, Kavi Bhane Gouda. Many bhajans in our tradition start with kavi. That's very interesting. That's a warranty of success. The song is starting with when, and that type of when. So you say, okay, here there is something. The real thing is there. When, starting with specific longing. So kavi, when, will, basically. Ishvara, Bali. Ishvara means Bhagavan, which in this case it's not so much an Ishvara in Aishwarya. Remember, Bhaktivinoda Thakura is praying to Ishvara in the context of Raga Bhakti. Even if you want to get more specific, you will say he's actually praying to Ishvari. Shri Radha is Ishvari in every single sense of the term. Makeshwari, Praneshwari, Swadeshwari, Saneshwari, Triveda Bharateshwari, Pramana Sasaneshwari, Rameshwari, Kshameshwari, Pramoda Kananeshwari, Brayeshwari, Brayadipe, Shri Radhike Namaste. Mahadev prays in this way. So she's the Ishwari in every single sense of the term you may possibly conceive. So Thakur Bhaktivinoda being Kamala Manjari, she has his hair, Ishwari. But the term is Ishvara, which in this case, as Guru Maharaj will explain regarding the fourth verse of Sikshastaka, Mahaprabhu also uses the term Ishvara there to refer to Krishna. But Ishvara doesn't mean Ishvara, Vaikuntanath, Narayan, but Praneshwar. Prananath, which means the master of my, how do you say in English? Psyching? Like, how do you say? Saiging. Yeah, not breathing, but when you are in love, you no longer breathe.
You sigh.
When you're loving, it's just like, when, kavi, kavi, when. That's to be in love. Very poetically to say that, for example, Sri Radha has a pearl under her nose, and generally a pearl is white. But generally it is seen that her pearl is half black and half red. So to say that some people say, well, that's because there's some reflection in her kajal, her eyeliner. So the black part reflects on the top part of the pearl. So top part is black and the low part reflects on her red lipstick and it's red. By the Rasika Vaishnava say, no, that's nonsense. And the real meaning of that, which seems like a gunjamala, no? Red, black, is a pearl. The red has to do with her anurag or her passionate attachment for Krishna. And the black has to do with Krishna himself, who is Shyam Sundar. So this red and black means whenever she breathes, she sighs. And she only sighs Krishna Anurag, Krishna Anurag, Krishna, red and black, red, and therefore her pearl is said to be red and black in this connection. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking in these terms when he says Ishvara. When Ishvara. Baliye, when he will say this means what he said in the previous verse. When he will bless me, we are free from obstacles. May you worship your Istadev peacefully. Navadvipdam. Harse. Dharibe. Harse means I'm very joyfully. Dharibe means he will place Sriya Chara Sri Charan. He will place his own Sriya Sri Charan, his own feet. Try to imagine. And you have to really enter into the picture. And Shrimhade will give you blessings. First, put his hand on your head, and then he will extend his feet on your head. That's like added feature, extra blessing. Mora Mastaka Upar on my head. So when Nrsimha Bhagavan will place his feet on my head, I give him full blessing for that. What's the meaning of that blessing? That's the point here, no? Because we pray, may Nrsimhadev bless me. But what's the result of that blessing in the context of Raga Bhakti? Amani Jugala Prem Sattvika Vikar. So Amani means immediately Jugala Prem. Love for the divine pair, you say? Jugal. Sattvika Vikar. And he will say in the next verse, Amilutivo Dharaya. By receiving that ecstatic transformation, Sattvika Vikar, I will roll on the ground. Srini Srimha Dware, to the door of Srini Srimha Bhagavan's temple. Remember, he's now in Godrum here, and in Godrum you find the temple of Nrsimhadev, Nrsimha Pali, which has some lake there also as well. We will speak something about that. How will I get to that temple? Sattvika Vikar, which is whole combination of ecstatic transformation, Sattvika Vikar. So that's the ultimate result of Nrsimha Bhagavan's blessings. So of course the question is, well, that sounds nice. Easier said than done. How to walk the talk, how to arrive there. So let's go back for a minute to Prahlad Maharaj, because we were speaking about the highest reach of Raga Bhakti and even Nadia, but Prahlad Maharaj, remember, he's a constant foundation for us regarding all the things that have to be in place to begin with for our project to be sustainable. So Prahlad Maharaj is a great, perfect example of, again, of high, freedom from fear, peacefulness, and prayer. Prayer. He's considered like the Acharya of Smarana, regarding the Navan Lakshman Bhakti, the 9 practice of devotion mentioned by himself in the Bhagavatam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pal Sevanam, Bandhanam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Dasyam, Sakyam Atmanivedanam. So he himself, it is Punsarpita Vishnu, Bhaktis Chinna Valakshanam, Kriyeta Bhagavatyada. How's the last line? Kriyeta Bhagavatyada, Tadinam Itamutamam. Yeah. Interestingly, after that 9 practice, he said, you have to practice them adha, completely, which the commentators say, with Saranagati. Not only here in chanting, but on the platform of Saranagati. So Rupa Goswami mentions different examples for each one of these 9 practices for attaining perfection to that. So he gives example Shravan. Who is the example of Shravan? Shravanaika Guru. Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah. And then for Kirtan, Sukadeva Goswami. And then for Smaran, Prahlad Maharaj. Interesting. So of course, although prayer may be connected more with Bandhanam, which Thakura is the main personality, there also Smaranam is quite connected with prayer. And how Prahlad Maharaj went through all these different circumstances that he went through by the grace of Hiranyakashipu. So many obstacles he was met on his path. And he was praying to the point of becoming prayer himself. That's in, let me go to a play of words. I cannot avoid that. Someone who plays is a player, no, right? Someone who speaks is a speaker. Someone who prays is a prayer. Interestingly, that's the word we have. What to do? You have to become prayer. That's the idea. To pray means that I am a prayer. That's the whole idea of praying. It's not like a separate thing. At one point in the beginning, maybe a separate thing, but eventually you have to become prayer. You have to become a walking prayer. That was Prahlad Maharaj was, wow, you have to become prayer ourselves. That means to pray. So he couldn't, Prahlad, we know, he couldn't be harmed even by the strongest forces in the universe. He was a bhai, unafraid. He had no enemies, Ajata Sattu, to say. He for whom non-enemy was born yet. So that means to pray. To really enter prayer means we are to become that. To some form of sayuja, some type of merging into ourselves and the spirit of prayer. Kavi, this when. And again, in this way, there will, I mean, if you become prayer, there won't be any obstacles in your life. We could take that stance. The more you find obstacles, or if you still find obstacles in your life, that's showing the degree to which you have not become yourself prayer. Since you have not fully entered into that realm, still you feel obstacles. So those obstacles come to remind you, you have to increase your prayerhood, your prayerness. You have to become more prayer. The obstacles are coming to as a reminding note. No? More prayer. You have to become more prayer. Again, there's no separate life between me and prayer. I pray when I need. Sometimes that's the idea. When I need, I pray. Yes, that's a good point. But the point is you always need. As we said yesterday, we may feel I need something and act accordingly, but what we feel we need is not necessarily our real need. Our real need, all saints have agreed, is prayer. We may feel we don't need that. We feel we need so many other things. Prayer? That sounds so like old school, so like out of date. For those weird guys living in the cavern or whatever. I am a contemporary, postmodern personality. And so many things to do. The whole world is waiting for me. Yeah. But in the context of prayer, try to address the world in the context of prayer. If not, you won't be even addressing the world. You were just like in some nightmare or whatever. You were just misinterpreting reality. So we need this idea because we are again speaking the concept of Raga Bhakti. In Raga Bhakti, this is the standard. I mean, there is so much. I mean, naturally, they may not be praying like we may do as sadhakas, but they are imbibed in such a mode that there are no obstacles, or basically whatever obstacle comes is nourishing the passionate love for Krishna. But to reach there, first we have to become prayer, as sadhakas. As we quoted the other day, the Prem Samput. In Prem Samput, it's given this example of the lion and the elephant. The lion is there in the jungle, and the elephant comes to attack the lion. So, obstacles. But what will the lion do? Will defeat the elephant and will feed himself on the elephant. So the obstacle became food, nourishment. For whatever obstacle came, it gave further strength. Because that's the symbol of prema. Like when you have a current of a river, and the river is flowing with a certain strength, but the river finds some obstacle, what will happen with the river? In order to overcome the obstacle, and it will get stronger. The current will become more condensed, more intense, and it will overcome. So the obstacle is only strengthening. So that's how it should work ideally. Redoubled force, basically. So similarly, sometimes the acharyas have concluded in this way: attraction for the beloved will increase proportionately to the obstacles. Interesting. The obstacles will only increase the attraction. As we say the other day, love moves in a crooked way. Sridhar Maharaj would say, because it embraces everything on its way. So we could further apply this idea. Love moves in such a way that all obstacles are included within the flow of love and are made part of the love equation, and are taken to further nourish the current of love, the advancement of love. Again, we may not be there, but we as sadhakas, at least in theory, we should know whatever I'm perceiving as obstacle has the potential to nourish my prayer, my sadhana, my life. It's not to be discarded. Nothing is to be discarded. If I discard something, I'm the loser. I find the opportunity of adding some extra vitamin, if you will, to my bhasha. So prayer is a really comprehensive activity. And sometimes devotees, with all respect, I mean, not only devotees, everyone, but devotees included, are not so much like fond of prayer. I mean, because it's difficult, it's complex, it easily discourages, because it means entering into certain direction that is not so easy. So generally, when something is not so easy, we get discouraged. I once read one book from one Christian saint called, the book is called The Art of Prayer, and the author is, I have it in Spanish, but not in English. Teófano, in Spanish is Teófano, the recluse. That was his name. So already his name is scary, maybe. I will present you a recluse. You feel like, I'm chilling. And the book is called The Art of Prayer, double chilling there. And he really describes, yes, prayer is not easy. It's like, because it easily discourages you, because it's not easy to perform. It's complex, it's difficult, it takes you out of the comfort zone. And we hear all the things that we may feel, oh no, I don't want that. That's our problem. We want things relatively easy, or not relatively, but as easy as possible. But the point is, we as Bada Jivas are not in our natural condition. So the point is, if we were to be in our natural condition, everything will easy in one sense. But in the unnatural condition, sometimes those things that naturally are easy, in the unnatural condition, do not seem easy. So there is a challenge there. So prayer ideally encompasses from all of our functions, tip to toe, from tip to toe. As we mentioned, we don't have to pray, but we have to become prayer. Prayer. So with all that it implies, as we spoke in the very first lecture some days back, Trita Darpana Marjanam Mahaprabhu will say, try to embrace your unconscious. Maybe it sounds more easy to say, clean the mirror of your mind. That's equally difficult, but it may sound better. If I say try to embrace your unconscious, like, oh, okay. But that's the very beginning of Nam Sankirtan, which is another way of saying prayer. Try to address, let's try to address, as we say yesterday, try to address those unknown sections. The known, we already have experience of that. Now, whatever we need to further advance has to do with something we don't know, which is unknown. We know so much of Christian consciousness, and we can recite so many ideas and verses, and we have learned by heart even so many verses. But now we have to discover the unknown part of all those things that we know in theory. For example, I've learned many verses by heart, but it doesn't mean anything in one point. If I'm not willing to enter those verses and hear all that those verses have to tell me in connection to those things that I still do not know. So that really means to learn the verse. Not just, oh yeah, I know that one, boom. But to let the verse enter and show you, to shed light in those sections that no light is shining on at this present moment. All those, each of these sections are to enlighten. Enlighten us means shed light when there's no light. And you will see those things that till today remain in darkness. You want to do that? Hopefully, yes. Yes? Okay. I'm recording, just in case. Whenever you have some headache or something, I will show you the recording. Did you say yes? And that's the idea, of course. That's a very heroic project. It may take time, and it may be, as we said the other day, embarrassing, but glorious at the same time. Because it's such an ideal. As Srila Maharaj would say, we are to be judged according to our ideal. He even once said, we are a means to our ideal. That quote was like, wow. I'm a means, you say, to my ideal. My ideal has to trespass me. I'm just to allow myself to be like interpenetrated by my ideal. So that ideal can bear fruit, come to life through me. That's the success of my existence, basically. But again, it's a gradual process. And we are to go through all the stages with patience, as we say, learning to wait, but in the context of waiting, learning to increase our longing in a healthy way, as we spoke today with Subal in the car while we were coming here. The process is gradual, but not that gradual either. It's as gradual as you want to make it gradual. It can be too gradual, and it doesn't work like that. You have to balance longing and patience. Yes, the classical example, the pregnant lady. She has to wait, but the longing is increasing. I want to meet my child, but she has to wait minimum 9 months. So patience, but longing, patience. One will like qualify the other. One will put in context the other, because without patience, you will open your belly before time. It doesn't work. And without longing, I mean, the baby is born and you're okay. It doesn't work like that. No? So the two of them have to help each other. So we have to go through all these stages that scripture describes: Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, and all these shades in between. And be willing to pay the price for treading each one of these stages in the ladder, as embarrassing as they may be in the beginning, especially. I would say the other day, for example, a Kanishta or a novice is someone who really doesn't care too much for revelation. It's more attached to one's own subjectivity from here and now, and not so much how super subjectivity is operating. So this idea came the other day, like a Kanishta will see Shastra through the lens of their emotions, but the Madhyam will see his emotion through the lens of Shastra, which is different. It's the same words, but a different degree of. Kanishta will see Shastra through the lens of their emotions. So Shastra will accommodate according to whatever is going on in them. But the Madhyam will filter her emotions through the lens of Shastra, another reality. And Aduttam, her emotions are Shastra in itself. we will say. Those emotions come bhava as with Shastra's foundation. So all the things have to be threaded, especially in our in our Raga-marga project, which is a very, very specific path. In the Raga-marga Chandrika, this is a very nice book. We studied this book last year or something. We made some 20-something classes on the Raga-marga Chandrika, which means a moonlight on the path of Raga. So Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur begins his book by saying that we do not only need some light for us to know how to thread the path, but to begin with, we need light to become aware that such a thing exists altogether, because it's totally beyond our wildest imagination. If we do not get in touch with sadhus, with certain particular currents in parampara, we will never just come of our own conclusion like Krishna and Vrindavan and all this interaction. I mean, nobody has came ever like, okay, I happen to imagine this story and this came to me. It's a cool script you can check, called Srimad Bhagavat or whatever. Nothing worldly. So we need that more light to shed, first of all, to show us such a thing is possible. And we are now like trying to ruminate on that, how such a thing is possible, and how such a thing is trying to be possible in my life. I mean, because it's an important exercise to daily put on the scale, like revisit the scale, if you will. Such a thing which is possible and it's knocking on my door. And on the other side, I count my so-called merit. It doesn't compute in comparison with this. And so you make this exercise of increasing your humility. And then, okay, this is possible, and how to thread such a path, Raga Bhakti. So this Raga-marga, I will call it, I like this idea of Raga-marga is the path of specificity. It's a very specific path. It's not just a general idea of God, a general idea of service to God, as we spoke these days. It's not just a God who is there and we are just to, whatever, provide the bread I need and whatever I need and project some temporary notion on him or he's Atmaram, he doesn't need too much. So I will worship because he has to be worshipped and not I. But such a specific real. So gradually, as I mean, all of us want to be members of the Raga-marga. So we have to really enter into the implications of that. It's not just being part of one institution and a card-carrying member. Okay, my guru is this and this is my name. But how much I am advancing into all that I can be in the Raga-marga, my identity of service. And I don't want to sound sahaja, no, but at the same time, as we said the other day, there's two varieties of sahaja. One is you're rushing, as Srila Semaras will say, fools rush when angels fear to thread. Yeah. Or the other variety of sahaja is I'm ready for the next step and I'm not willing to do that. And I choose to insist on remaining mediocre participant and cheat myself out of that. That's sahaja. So because sahaja means to make the thing cheap and easy and not be willing to pay the price you need. So that can take these two forms. I want the highest thing too quickly, or I'm not willing to advance as I need to advance to make the necessary progress. So Raga Bhakti has to do with making progress. Our Guru Maharaj will say that's what Madhyam Bhakta is concerned about, and someone who is concerned with being a Madhyam Bhakta will be concerned about making progress. Not in a neurotic way, but you have to be concerned with that idea. I want to grow, I want to progress, I want to mature, I want to get closer to the goal that my sadhus are describing to me. I'm getting closer to that. I mean, you have to analyze yourself. You cannot let one single day without doing that. If you want to practice, and if you don't want to practice, okay. But to practice means, I mean, you have to revisit where I am today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. No, again, not in an erotic way, but Krishna conscious. You have to be conscious of what you are trying to do. So what I am doing today to get closer to my goal, I'm doing something, or I'm just being carried by the motions of the day, if you will. And one more day, it's okay. I was not so sinful. I didn't do such terrible things. So I'm kind of a nice guy. And Krishna is so merciful. On top of that, Krishna is so merciful. So for sure, he will give some extra magic of me. That's it. Krishna said, that's not really that. That's not, sometimes devotees will say the other day, we'll have this naive idea. Okay, I'm chanting my rounds, I'm giving my monthly dakshina in the temple, and I'm doing ekadasi. Although I'm looking on the clock for the titi on Dwadasi also, and have my pizza ready there. And I follow the regulative principles. Somehow I'm following the regulative principles. So at the end of my life, some magic will happen, and Krishna has to take me to Govardhan. I mean, that's his duty. We may cheat ourselves in that way, and we may not have a clue about who we are in eternity yet. Do you follow? That point is, you want to arrive there. If you don't have a clue, who will you be there? It's not that I don't have an idea, but Krishna will take me into Goloka and say, okay, you came, let's see, your name is this, you go to this, but Salya department, we need one there. Okay. And I'm so fallen that I cannot demand Krishna, I want this. Whatever he sends, I'm willing to do so. That's not humility. In this case, you follow my point. So we need to enter into the specificity of the path. As many times I told you, like, if I ask you what's the goal of life for us, and you tell me love of God, I may tell you that's still a level of impersonalism. Because our path is so specific about the goal of life that if your only reply is love of God, that's closer to Mayavad than to our real ultimate goal. That's too impersonal yet. Love of God. Which type of love? Which type of God? Love for Krishna. Which type of Krishna? Mathura Krishna, Dwarka Krishna, Braja Krishna. Braja Krishna. Which Braja Krishna? Which type of love for Braja Krishna? Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Madhurya. Which type of Madhurya? Pakiya, Parakiya. Which type of Parakiya? Tat Bhavichadmika, Sambhogachadmika, direct union with him, serving Naika, heroine, serving Shirada. Okay, in which camp, in which type of services? I mean, so many layers. And in which camp? And under the guidance of specific, more specific. The idea of love of God, totally forgotten. Because at that point, you won't be seeing Krishna as God. I mean, if you want to serve under the shelter of Shirada, I mean, you will be abusing Krishna, most probably. Krishna will want to enter, will say, get out of here. You rascal, you offended my Swamini, my Ishwari. She was waiting all that night long, preparing the kunya for you to ride. And you just come now in the morning like if nothing happened, with all the marks of the loving battle with Chandravali. We don't want to see your face here. Get out quickly. I mean, you cannot think Krishna is God to tell those things to him. I mean, you follow. So unless, and it's not only about getting to know those details as information. So now I will be there. But of course you have to know those things in theory, but then walk the talk. And whenever you really are there, according to the affinity you have because of sadhu sangha, then there is some scope for entering there. But if not, still it's too abstract. And I'm not condemning that. I mean, again, the process is gradual. But again, not that gradual either. Because if you really put in the scale all that is coming to you, what I have to do something with this. So I have to enter into the details, for example, of our ultimate identity to enter there. Unless we know that, unless we really ardently desire that, we won't go to the spiritual world because we don't have a clue about who we are and what we'll be doing there. So And again, that won't happen like magic, because sometimes we cheat ourselves. Someday that will happen, but you don't have an idea how that will happen. And that's not sahaja again. It's what should I, if you really want that, in the real sense, with the real intention, I want to go there to serve in a particular way. I want to develop an identity of service that is a result of identification with the necessity of service. Eventually, all that will take place. But we need to enter into a specific. So that's a good way of measuring our progress. How much more specific my practice is becoming in time. I'm entering more, and again, this is not just intellectual curiosity. I will know the details. I'm really being specific now. No, specific in everything else, in prayer again. How much more ingrained all those things becoming. Without paranoia, without discouragement. I don't want anyone to get out depressed out of this lecture, please. But feeling some healthy pinch, you say? Mm-hmm. Pinch. It is saying one Christian saying from Chile, he say, if you give, but it's not pinching, you are not giving, basically. So you have to give until it pinches. And then a sustainable level again. But you have to feel something. At least in our stage. And allow ourselves for the pinching. The sadhu will come with this, like nails in hand. Another form of Nisringa Bhagavan. Some pinching. If you don't want this, he will do like this. Some pinching. If you resist to that, he will have to show another way of some other function of his name. So in this way, in this prayer, Sri Thakura Bhaktivinoda is showing to us the need to receive Narasimhadev's blessings. Again, like implying, may he put his hand on my head, feet on my head, and only after that, as he mentioned, immediately I will receive ecstatic love for the divine couple. First, Narasimhadev will bless me with fearlessness, with the possibility of embracing all that Prahlad Maharaj represents, of becoming prayer myself. And then we can speak seriously about Jugal Bhajan and Jugal Prem and all the things that imply. And we will be rolling, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says here, from one temple to the other. We will reach the different Lila styles in rolling mode, like here and there. So all these verses are again in this Narasingha Pali, this very beautiful place in Godrum, which is connected to the realm of Kirtan. So Kirtan is our vehicle, our means, if you will, to reach all this. So we are to embrace in this spirit, Sri Nam, praying for the blessings of Nisringa Bhagavan. So through this series, we have tried to show that, how we can worship Nisringadev in a way that this may facilitate our proximity to our Ishtadev in the Raga-marga. Sri Radha and Krishna, Sri Krishna Balaram, according to each one's proclivity. And also to demystify the wrong notion that some devotees sometimes may have, that Nisringadev will will chase away Radha and Krishna. I've heard that sometimes. If you worship Nisringadev, Radha and Krishna will be chastened. Chastened, you say? Chased away. No. And we have the most perfect example of this is Gopal Bhatta Goswami. You know the story, man. Once upon a time, Narasimha Chaturdasi, he was with his Shalagram Shilas. He has 12 Shalagram Shilas, as you know. Mahaprabhu gave that instruction, go to Gandaki River and find the Gandaki Shilas in the Gandaki River. And he was with this desire, I would like to worship Radha and Krishna. He had some clothes for them. And Mahaprabhu had promised to him, I will give you my darshan one more time, because Gopal also only met Mahaprabhu once in South India when he was a boy. And he wanted to join Mahaprabhu. But Mahaprabhu said, no, you stay with your parents till they pass away, and then we'll meet each other again. But then Mahaprabhu passed away. So Gopal was like, what about this second darshan. So all this longing were meeting together. I would like to worship Radha and Krishna. I would like to have darshan of Mahaprabhu. And here I am with my 12 shilas. So eventually one day of Narasingha Chaturdasi, he's deeply contemplating the devotion of Prahlad and how such bhakti made Bhagavan appear from a pillar. I mean, that's so powerful. That's the very idea of bhakti. Bhakti makes Bhagavan appear. Wherever there is bhakti, there is Bhagavan, because Bhagavan is the Bhagavatam say that. Bhagavan Bhakta Bhakti Mam. For me, that's a beautiful definition. That's the official definition that the Bhagavatam gives of Bhagavan. What's Bhagavan? Bhakta Bhakti Mam. He's the Bhakta of his Bhaktas. He's the devotee of his devotee. That's Bhagavan. Once Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta said that Krishna is the personification of devotional. No, the devotee is the personification of devotional service to Krishna. Krishna is the personification of devotional service to the devotee. That's Krishna. Ham bhakta paradino yashutantri. So Gopal Bhatta was meditating on this, how from a pillar, from stone, Bhagavan appeared due to Prahlad's bhakti. So he had these 12 stones, if you will. He wished so much. I would like my Bhagavan, my Istadev and he was lamenting and crying deeply. Kavi. Oh, when? And he fell unconscious and got to sleep in that way. That was the way the Goswamis went to sleep at night. Crying and lamenting. Okay. It was not, okay, I'm tired and go to sleep. And I put my watch. No, I was like... And as we know, the result of that contemplation in Prahlad, Bhakti, and Narasingha's appearance was the next day, one of the 12 shilas, the basket he had was open. Gopal Bhatta was like, maybe snake is there. So it's moving. And one of the 12 shilas, the Damodar Shila, appeared in the form of Shri Radha Raman Ki Jai. Basically the most important deity of the whole Vrindavan, which kind of embodies all the deities brought together. So the result of contemplating the Srimhadev Lila, Bhakta Prahlad Maharaj's devotion was Radha Raman, interestingly. So the point is that when Gopal Bhatta contemplated Prahlad and Srimhadev, the result was not the disappearance of Radha and Krishna, but their appearance. Because Radha Raman is the combined form of Sri Radha and Krishna, and therefore it is concluded that's Mahaprabhu also. In this way, Mahaprabhu gave his darshan to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and he was able to worship his Istadev. So in this way, in these prayers, Thakur Bhaktivinoda has shared with us some important points for us to attain adhikar eligibility to further tread the path of Raga Bhakti. To begin with, to enter into what Shiva Goswami called Ajata Ruchi Raganuga Bhakti, which means we are threading the path of Raga Bhakti, although we may not be passionately absorbed in following the footsteps of the Brajavasis, but somehow we are on the path. The goal has been established. The connection is there, the agency is there, the Bhakti samskars are there. So again, the more we progress, in the beginning, Srimhadev will play this role, will clear the path, will help us to attain fearlessness and so on. And the more we progress in our worship in the Raga-marga, the more the worship of Srimhadev will go to the background. More and more and more. But interestingly, as we mentioned in the first class, when we reach the height of the Raga-marga, when we enter Golok and we enter Nityanavadip, Srimhadev will appear there again, because we will reach the house of Nanda Maharaj, and there Nrsimhadev is the Istadev. Madhu Mangal will be daily worshipping Nrsimhadev. Everyone will be praying to him for the protection of Krishna. And when we enter Nityanavadip, we will go to Srivas Sangam, and Srivas Thakur is worshipping Nrsimhadev there for the protection of Krishna in the form of Sankirtan. This is non-different from Srinam, Sankirtan. So interestingly, Nrsimhadev will reappear, but from a different perspective. So some ideas we have been sharing this these last 2 weekends with all of you in this connection of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers to Sri Nrsimhadev in the pursuit of Raga-marga. So I don't know if you have any questions before finishing today. Sumati?
Some of the other classes you were, and today too, but emphasizing embracing the obstacles and integrating them.
Mm-hmm.
If you could speak, like yesterday, I think you said about recognizing them and not identifying with them.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little more specifically about that.
Well, yeah, yesterday we mentioned that anartha nibriti is not, I mean, it's not a practice in itself. It's not that you engage in anartha nibriti. You engage in bhajana kriya. And anartha nibriti is a result of that bhajana kriya on some level. That's, I mean, on another levels, nishta, rucha, sakti, still there is anartha nibriti, because there are anarthas till you reach bhava, prem. But they are not so much as they are before nishta. So that's why anartha nibriti will be the main concern of a sadhaka before attaining nishta. Like for 90, maybe once my Guru Maharaj said that 99% of the sadhaka should, when chanting, should focus on this first glory of Srinam, Chittudarpanamarjana, Chittudarpanamarjana. In other words, identifying with the need of purification. It's okay, no problem with that. So as we say yesterday, and that has to do with identifying whatever anarthas may be there, but not identifying with the anarthas. Identifying the anarthas, not with the anarthas. So the dust is there, I need to clean the house, but I'm not the dust. Basically, that's the whole, even though all the dust is, when I'm cleaning it, it seems I'm the dust because I'm doing the self-abhishek of dust. But I still know I'm not the dust. I'm totally covered by that, but I'm something more. So, and again, it's easier said than done, because sometimes in our inner world and practice, we may get overwhelmed, and some particular wave of an art may like appear, like, wow, this is the all in all in me. And we may feel, I do not see anything bright of all this. It seems that there's nothing apart from whatever selfishness in my heart, and we may get discouraged, we may get suicidal, thinking I'm the worst crap in the whole creation. And there's not that single good thing about me. And it's important to be careful in those moments, and also know how to deal with those type of prayer from high personalities, which say there's nothing good in me. It's full of that, but Thakur has so many. And you have to know how to deal with that in a non-dysfunctional way, because you can chant those and commit suicide after the kirtan by wrong imitation. No? So from where he's saying that, from where we are saying that, so it's important to to embrace the obstacles, as our Guru Maharaj will say, to take your anarthas and put them in the altar, like implying whatever I feel is an obstacle now, whatever I'm detecting. Because first of all, you have to detect, you have to know what's an anartha, what's not an anartha. And our acharyas have made such a clear description of different types of anarthas. And again, this is theory, but it helps. I mean, 4 categories of anarthas, but Thakur mentioned 4 subcategories to each one of those 4. You have 16. Still, he's very generous, telling you only have 16 anarthas. Of course, so many other things coming from that, but still you are not them. Even though in that stage you will perceive mostly anarthas everywhere, and where I am, you are the one perceiving the anarthas. The anarthas are perceived, you are the perceiver of the anartha. So that's still already glorious, because for uncountable lifetimes you never perceived an anartha. You didn't even know that there was something called anartha. You were totally merged into your anarchic identity. I'm the anartha. I mean, in that time you felt I'm the anartha without knowing about the anartha. Like people say, why you are angry? I'm like this. Why you act like this? That's me. total like merging with the anartha. So at least we start to have this knowledge to separate. There is the anartha and there is, so anartha nibriti means basically to conduct ourselves in bhajan and kriya with the awareness that there is something called anarthas and there's something I have to do in relation to them. So meanwhile I engage in bhajan, I have the I have the necessity, perceived necessity, dealing with those anarthas, acknowledging them. And the more I feel I have some obstacle, for sure there must be some anartha. Even though I may not know which is that anartha. Sometimes I may not have a clue about what's going on, but I know something's there. That's the scripture say. If you chant Hari and your heart is not melting and you are not crying, do not blame Sri Harinam. Do not blame Sri Guru, or maybe he gave me a not so efficacious mantra or something. I mean, I'm not saying also blame yourself and torture yourself. I'm not saying that, but do not put responsibility on the environment, because you have received everything you need. You received Srinam, you have the connection with the Sadguru. I mean, now it's your turn, if you will. that's that's high responsibility. It's not a joke. You say, oh, I have such a connection with my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, and I receive Harinam from here, mantra from him. Great, but that's big commitment. What do I do with the most powerful and glorious thing I could ever receive in my life? Not to be scared, just to become adults. Adults basically means someone who awakes to the reality of commitment. A child means someone who only wants to play. That's what it means to be a child. You want to play, non-responsibility, leave me alone, I want to do whatever I like. And to grow and mature means you gradually realize, oh, I have some duty, responsibility, commitment, sacrifice. So apply that idea to the ultimate degree in the context of bhakti. It means to take full responsibility of the mercy that has come to me. So in that context, all these anarthas are to be dealt with and integrated. Yeah, as we mentioned, integrated in the sense of I don't have to reject them, but I need to transcend them. And as we say the other day, transcendence doesn't mean rejection, but means integration of complexity. Anartha means something that I couldn't figure out yet. So I need to fully integrate, because whatever I may have, like Narottam Das Thakur talked, he started to spoke about kama, krodha, lobha, mada, etc., greed and lust and anger, and say how all the things, all these impulses can be engaged in bhakti. That's the way he mentioned that. I will integrate them. I mean, because lust, greed is such a powerful energy in there. So I don't want to lose that powerful impulse. I just want to express that in the context of bhakti. Because all those impulses are making the world go round, and so many things are happening because of that. What if we take all that energy and direct in the proper? It's not that we need to kill that, but just express that in connection to the center. So yeah, we need to learn from the obstacles, because again, obstacles are not obstacles ultimately. Actually, the obstacles comes to show us you choose to see me as an obstacle. Basically, so I gave the example the other day with Amritana. I may feel subjectively, this is just an example, not reality. He's an obstacle in my life. But he's not. But I may perceive him as an obstacle. So actually what I'm saying is I choose to see you as an obstacle. I'm creating the obstacle reality, and you, I choose to make you the personified form of that, of my own projection. So whatever we feel as an obstacle coming into our lives externally, that's speaking about some other obstacle internally that we need to first acknowledge and then deal with. And probably when you want to deal with that, you realize, oh, this is too much. I cannot deal with this. It's too big. Great. That's another teaching that you are receiving. You cannot do it by yourself. That's the conclusion. So you have to take shelter in the proper direction. Daibihyasya gunamayi mamamaya duryatya, says Krishna. This is, to overcome this Maya Shakti is next to impossible. Krishna says it's very difficult. If he says it's very difficult, I say totally impossible. And then he goes in the two second lines mentioning, but if you take shelter in the proper direction, that which is almost impossible becomes almost immediate, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here. Immediately this happens. Just taking the proper shelter, just paying attention in the proper direction. As we say the other day, when Parikshit Maharaj told Sukadeva, I have 7 days to live. So, I don't know, is that enough time for me to reach perfection? Sukadeva started to laugh, to chuckle, like, 7 days? That's a lot of time. He said, just 1 second. If you pay proper attention in the proper direction for 1 millisecond, that's enough for reaching perfection. If you don't pay proper attention and you're looking just in the wrong direction, you can spend lifetimes after lifetimes after life, and it's not enough yet. So it's not about quantity, but quality to reach that point. So, yeah, try it. We have to, develop this disposition of being students forever, as Celestia Maharaj will say. So, an artist knocking on my door, she will say, what do you have to teach me? You are my teacher, you are my master, with some humility. Have big lesson to learn here. Humility means that. Humility means still willing to learn. Willing to, especially with those things that are really embarrassing, with those things that throw me to the ground and make my face be grinded like, yeah, please teach me my necessary lesson. I want to learn, I want to grow. Remember, I want to make progress. I want to grow and make progress. I want to change. If you don't want to change, I mean, what you are doing here, you are in the wrong place. We don't want to change, we're in the wrong place. So, and we don't have an idea of how much we can change. But the sadhus have that idea, and they see our potential, and they are already seeing our ultimate, most upgraded version of ourselves, and they want that to happen. Try to imagine what must it be for the eye of the heart of the sadhu, that he or she is not seeing who we are. He's seeing our ultimate version, the most brilliant version of ourselves, and just wanting that to happen. And we put in so many obstacles for that not to happen yet sometimes. And the sadhu's been very expert in, well, I mean, we have our obstacles, but they are dealing with ourselves, putting obstacles to them, trying to take us there. And we do not understand what's that. And we try, no, thank you so much. And they are trying to very expertly. And someday we will reach there, and someday we will understand, and we will be able to really express our gratitude and realize, oh, you wanted to give me this to me. You wanted me to be this. Now I reached it. Now I understand what you meant. So all the things have to be happening, have to be boiling in yourself. Again, do not wait for a miracle to happen, if you will. The miracle already happened. I mean, the knocking on the door already came time ago. So once one devotee say that, miracle doesn't mean that God makes what you want, but that you make what he wants. So that's a real miracle. When we started to align ourselves with the will of divinity, that the real thing starts to continue to happen. Something else, some other question? Trying to see this here.
Just a couple small reflections. Thank you, Maharaj. Wonderful class. Piggybacking a little on the anarthas, I was thinking of I heard once this Christian preacher, he said that if the war is still raging in your mind, you should praise the Lord, because one side is not won. So the idea being like, you're still seeing those anarthas, so that's a good thing. You were saying it's a good thing if we see the anarthas are there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if we don't see them, then that's scary. The other reflection is I really like this point you made about becoming a prayer. I've never heard that put that way.
I never heard that either. It came. It's not my idea, just in case. I didn't hear from anyone else, and therefore it's not mine either. But it came. It was not in. Oh, how can I make a play of words with prayer? I didn't just so.
Mars,
No, I have no copyrights with the idea.
You should Catholic, but anyway, you have an expert grasp of language. I mean, English is obviously maybe not your first language, but you understand some words better than me. I noticed that about many of our acharyas, actually. So I like this idea of become a prayer. And one thing I wanted to share briefly is this: growing up, I was Catholic, raised Catholic, and there's this prayer that they sing in the church that always bewildered me, that we should learn to pray without ceasing.
Without ceasing.
Without ceasing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as a small child, I was bewildered by that. Mm-hmm. Like, what? What does that mean? You're just in church all day like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like a scary idea, and I feel like today I was able to grasp more like how that might be possible. Become a prayer. So thank you. Just reflection.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's not easy to. It's not easy to pray, and we can read books and hear some advice, but at one point it's like a mysterious thing. You have to enter, and it's not that, okay, this is the formula, you follow every single step, and success guaranteed. And success guaranteed, but you don't know what will happen in between of that. So it's like, as you say, it's scary to not see you're an artist. It's scary to see you're an artist, but it's scary not to see them. So prayer means I'm willing to see what I need to see, what it will be shown to me. Because what can I see? I can see, strictly speaking, what someone will show to me. I do not trust too much my own eye. So prayer means I'm begging for that enlightenment. I'm begging to really to witness, to shed light on whatever corner needs to be shed light on. Again, that can be scary because, as we say yesterday, we are afraid of the unknown. Whatever is unknown, we're afraid of our shadow. And as we say, paradoxically, we are also not fully aware of our brightest potential, which is so bright, so beautiful, but unknown. So we may be scared about that as well. So we need to integrate all this, and we need to develop courage, basically, courageous. Abhay, this concept of abhay is so powerful. So many implications of this idea of becoming courageous personality, free from fear. And prayer has to do with that, basically. So thank you for your contribution. Krishna Chaitanya.
I'm just trying to see. You said a few things, and I'm trying to see if I'm understanding it. So you're talking about someone being overcome by their emotions and not knowing, just being carried, I guess, on a lower level. Mm-hmm. Maybe you get angry and you're like, I don't know why I said that. And then on a higher level, I guess one could say something and be like, I don't know why I said that. But and then you're connecting it with, you're saying the Kanishta would not understand their nartas or their emotions, and the Madhyama would use Shastra. Well, okay, you're saying that the Kanishta would see the Shastra through their emotions, and then the Madhyama would see their emotions through Shastra. So I guess that's integration to a certain degree, and being able to identify our emotions and maybe be like, oh, that's a lower thing. And we do that with this. But then sometimes, hey, that's happening. Cool. And then the Uttama they're overcome by emotions and has kind of come through that. And then now they're overcome again by emotions, but higher type of thing. So that's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought so.
Yeah. Good to confirm always. Yeah. That's a great exercise. You hear someone speaking to make sure that I understood what you were telling. That's a total necessary exercise. So yeah, it makes full circle, and that's why sometimes we hear this idea that between Kanishta and Uttam, they seem to be in a similar situation on one level, but actually it's worlds apart, because the two of them in this case are overcome by emotion, but one is one type of bhava. Bhava can mean also material existence. Bhava, Mahadavagni Nirbhapanam, says Mahaprabhu. Bhava refers to samsara there. So Kanishta may still be overcome by samsara, if you will, on some level, emotionally speaking. And the Madhyam will be, in a calculated way, if you will, with some conscious effort, filtering whatever currents are coming, and how much this is anukulya sankalpa pratikulya varjana, favorable enough. There is still some conscious effort and self-sacrifice, but Uttam is riding the waves of Bhav again. But the other ones, they have reached their emotions are Shastra again. They do not need to refer to Shastra to justify whatever is happening, but actually Shastra is pointing to their emotions. No? There's where you have to go. That's the ultimate content of Shastra, the emotions of the Uttam Bhagavatam. That's what we find in the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is about the emotions of the Brajavasis. That's the pinnacle of the Bhagavatam. So we are again, they're overcome by emotions. So that's why bhakti is so difficult to understand actually. In one sense it's simple and easy, but in another sense it's really cryptical, and you may really mistake one thing for the other and this and that. So it's not easy to be overcome by emotions in that sense.
It seems like it's kind of, having you explain it like that, it kind of shines a light on why there's a problem sometimes if very early on you're trying to enter these emotions past the deal. You got to get to a point where you have enough equanimity and knowledge of Shastra so that you can separate yourself from your emotions and also be able to evaluate, I guess. Yeah. And that's what integration is about.
Yeah, we spoke today with Subal also in our drive here. It was an interesting conversation we had. And one of the points was in connection with this, that sometimes regarding Shastra, and the role of Shastra in the novice and in the progressive practitioner. And for the Kanishta or the beginner's practice, Shastra doesn't have too much of a role yet. I mean, the Kanishta has not yet awoken to the reality of how much I need to inform my life and practice through revelation. But again, my emotions are first, revelation is secondary. So my Shraddha is not Shastriya Shraddha, in other words. My faith is not mainly driven by what Shastra says, but something else. Shastra is there. It's not totally out of the picture, but not so much in the center. And for Madhyam, again, their faith is, of course, Shastriya Shraddha, which means my faith is connected to scripture, not to emotionality out of a scripture. And we were saying that sometimes, and I had that experience this last week after one interview I had last weekend, and that created some interaction with many people. And some people were presenting arguments to some points I made. It's okay, it's great. But the point is that we in the very beginning of the talk, we try to establish, if we are to enter into a debate or an argument, you have to set some, how do you say? Parameters. Thank you. Now, how the discussion will be conducted, which is the proper valid means of knowledge to refer to when speaking about anything. It's not just, I feel this, I think that. I mean, that's not Vaishnava dialogue. That's not Harikatha. So there's some Praman. Shastra is our Praman. Bhagavatam is the topmost Shastra. The Goswami Grantha, like a natural extension of that, and so on. And I made that point at the very beginning of the lecture. But in the thread, in the interaction, so many people was just like arguing according to analogies and personal feelings, and I think and I feel. And I was like, we have to refer to Shastra first to speak about something that is beyond our pratyaksha, our direct experience. It's not just about what I think, I feel. When Jiva Goswami makes this point, he says, for dealing with achintya topics, you need to refer to Shastra. And after referring to Shastra, you can use logic, you can use common sense, you can use blah, blah, blah. But by first referring to Shastra, it's not I use logic and common sense, and then I refer to Shastra, make Shastra accommodate to my common sense. It may not be too common sense, maybe. so follow. So my point was, sometimes if I refer to Shastra and my referring to Shastra is disturbing your faith, that can happen, then the only thing that you are telling to me, I mean, you may tell me, Maharaj, you are disturbing my faith. Say, but I'm referring to Shastra. So if your faith is disturbed by me referring to Shastra, the only thing you're telling to me is your faith is not Shastriya Shraddha. Your faith is only Ashastric, Laukiki Shraddha, in the words of Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Like mundane faith, emotionality, again. Shastra is somewhere, but your emotions are first. The ocean of your emotions are predominant. And Shastra has to adapt to that, which only speaks about how neophyte we are, which again, I'm not condemning that person. There's a place to be for being a neophyte, but there is a place and a moment to stop being a neophyte, because that can be dangerous. If you insist on being a neophyte when when you have to stop drinking breast milk, if you will. If you are children, you have 14 years old, say, Mom, breast milk, not healthy anymore. Beautiful chapter, but no longer that. Give me the pacifier. No longer that. You're alone. People go and get some cigarette, the adult version of the pacifier. Or something else, pacifier, something. So that's the point regarding what you were saying, no? The Madhyam, Kanishta, the level of reference to Shastra. So that's the point. If I refer to Shastra and that creates anxiety in you, that's not speaking about me, it's speaking about you, basically. If I'm quoting Shastra and your faith is disturbed, it's not because I'm a violent who wants to kill your faith, but it's your faith is not willing to agree with Shastra, basically. Let's say, I don't know, you say, well, Maharaj, but you say that nobody falls from Golok, but my faith is that we fall from Golok. So you are disturbing my faith. But I'm just quoting Shastra. I'm not just creating an idea to disturb you. I'm just sharing what Revelation says. So if that disturbs your faith, that's a great moment to grow in your faith, not to see someone attacking you. You follow? Because again, Shastra is to nourish our faith. So if by quoting Shastra, I disturb your faith, if by quoting Shastra, you feel I am attacking you, actually I'm trying to nourish you, because Shastra is not to attack you. Shastra is to nourish you. So if you feel that Shastra is attacking you, it speaks about the quality of your faith, not so much about how bad is the other person. All this has to do with Kanishta and Madhya. And this is a complex dynamic, because Kanishta will be Kanishta. You cannot just like press a button and they will stop being Kanishtas. But at least they should be under the guidance of someone higher than them, so they can like protect them, so they do not become aparadis, let's say, towards a Madhyam that is having a different opinion. The Kanishta may say, he's disturbing me, or he's deviated, he's under Madhyan guardian will say, no, he's okay. But it's not the time to think too much about that now. Now you concentrate here, and eventually I will tell you another story, apart from that a stork brought you in the chimney, something like that. Like the mother saying the child, stork brought you in the chimney, and the child finds another teenager. No, it doesn't happen like that. There's a fall, and the child is like, and goes back to the mother, and I said, he's not a bad guy. He said that. We will speak about it later. Keep with the nice story I told you yesterday. In some few years, I will tell you upgraded story. But now you can digest that truth, keep digesting. It's complex, especially in social media. All these things mixed together. You're speaking to an audience of 7,000 people and you don't have a clue who is on the other side. And someone will say, Maharaj, that was incredible and enlightening. And they'll say, so you are a traitor to the Sampradaya. I say, wow, what's a variety of audience. That's what happens. So part of the spice of life. Variety is the spice of life. Sometimes a little chili, but what to do? Masala is, I like masala. Okay, so I think we are on time. I don't know, one last question before finishing. Oh, yes.
I have a couple thoughts.
Okay.
Well, I really liked your, you brought up the pacifier. It's something I thought about too, like a year or two ago. I was thinking about how we call it in American slang a binky, the thing that the child sucks on the pacifier. And I was thinking about how we have all our different binkies or different crutches, different things like you said, cigarettes or whatever it is, overeating or just prajalpa. We use it as a binky, something we just kind of like, take shelter of, right? But then ultimately the ultimate binky is the holy name. And that's what we should really be sucking on, or really taking shelter of. But I had a question about the Kanishta. It's something that's always been a little hazy in my mind, and I guess the most concise way for me to ask when I'm trying to understand here is, would you consider that a Kanishta is necessarily a sadhaka, or would you say that that's not really a major component of how we define what a Kanishta is? Because a Kanishta could also be just like some Hindu who comes and drops off a few dollars a week. Would that also be a Kanishta, or would a Kanishta just be a beginning sadhaka who really doesn't have firm faith in the Shastra yet and doesn't understand the importance of Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement and the preaching, and he's still on the platform of just honoring, just seeing the deity, and himself, and like, I need to worship the deity for my own benefit. So it's like a sadhaka kind of in that sort of beginning mentality, or does that even stretch all the way to like a Hindu dropping off a few dollars a week?
Yeah. Well, of course, when we say Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam, it's like still a general way of dividing this. It's not just 3 levels. It's not like, oh, yesterday I was Kanishta and today I became upgraded into Madhyam. I have my new. That's one devotee put. You have Kanishta, and Kanishta Madhyam, and Kanishta Uttam, and Madhyam Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam Kanishta. And you can add in between many other Kanishtas and Madhyams and Uttams. It's so much nuanced, no? So if you take that nuanced perspective, you can include the 2 examples you gave in the context of different levels of being a Kanishta. I've heard that from many sadhus. Of course, one more inferior level being this person who goes to the temple and goes to the deity straight. Some sadhus speaking Harikatha, but the person is just going straight to the altar, dropping the rupees and praying to give me blessing for my new job. I want to have a nice wife, a nice car. Bhagavan, please bless me. Doesn't care for Harikatha, doesn't care for the sadhu. So that can be a level of Kanishta. The Bhagavatam describes the Kanishta as a Prakrita Bhakta. Prakrita Bhakta seems like an oxymoron because it's translated as materialistic devotee. Prakrita Bhakta is like, no, Bhakta is not supposed to be Prakrita. So sometimes it's also called Vaishnava Praya, which means like almost a Vaishnava. So it's a way of speaking. That's not what all that Vaishnavism is about, but in a very generous way, we could consider him, her as, on some level, is doing something. Krishna says in the Gita, Chatur Vidha Bhajanti Mam, etc. Jnani, how is? Arthar Yajnasura Arthartik Jnani Chavaratarshva. So some of the people that approach me, afflicted ones, wanted richness, wealth, knowledge, or the wise, as you gave the example of the pacifier. I mean, strictly speaking, for us, ultimately, holy name is not even a pacifier. I mean, we don't want Harinam to be an anxiolytic, you say in English? That's in Spanish. This type of medicines you take, we are in anxiety. Like, how do you say? In Spanish, it's ansiolítico. So I just made the English version.
Anti-anxiety.
Well, whatever. Anti-anxiety medication. So a pacifier. So for us, strictly, of course, in the beginning, we may take shelter in Sri Lanka when our mind is Krishna, Krishna, and Krishna said, okay, we have to begin somewhere. But ultimately, the idea is not to chant Harinam from that side, as we spoke the other day. It's more attentive. What need Krishna has, and how can I identify myself with that and serve there? Not so much, Krishna, my mind is driving me crazy. I'm on fire. Help me. Of course, at one stage you will be there, and you need to pray in that way. I'm not condemning that totally, but do not be misled to think that's the all in all about japa or kirtan. So, and again, for still that's a Kanishta mentality. To take the name as a pacifier, I will say that's a Kanishta level, or some level above the Hindu throwing some rupees for sure. But it still is Kanishta because you are still conceived Krishna and Trinam in service to you. Srila Prabhupada say that some people come to Krishna consciousness to serve and others to be served by Krishna. And embarrassingly, we still, many levels, we may want to be served yet. Help me, give me, relieve me, pacify me. Still, I am the center and you are to provide. Again, we have to begin somewhere. Krishna is so merciful, but we don't have to abuse that generosity. So all that has to do more with Kanishta, because the Madhyam, again, is more progressive, more concerned. How can I make progress? How can I mature and grow from this stage? So, see, I would say there's place for the Hindu throwing the rupees in the context of being a type of Kanishta, although that person may not even officially a sadhaka in the sense of having some daily sadhana, because sadhaka has to do with sadhana. The sadhaka is someone who engages in sadhana bhakti. So strictly speaking, we could say even that sadhana bhakti begins after accepting a guru. Rupa Goswami described what sadhana bhakti, the 64 limbs of bhakti. Sadhana bhakti, he starts what? Guru tas adi ado guru padasraya. Sri Krishna Dikshadi Sikshanam Vishrambena Guru Seva Sadhu Marganusarana. The first four items are all connected with the Guru. Taking shelter in the Guru, receiving Siksha and Diksha, serving Sri Guru with love and trust, following the footsteps of the sadhus. All that's the beginning of sadhana bhakti. So in one sense, we could say sadhaka has to do with someone who is somehow connected with the Guru. But sometimes people is connected with the Guru and they are the one throwing the rupee in the altar. They may have a Guru, but they may have accepted Guru in a more formal way. Okay, I have to have a Guru. I heard that will help. They may show up once a year for Janmashtami or whatever. Gurudev comes. Where was the tilak? Dhoti, okay. Jai Gurudev. Once a year. They are Japamala, they're hanging there for 364 days. After one day, Jai Gurudev. Again, at least they do it once a year. But not to cheat us as well. So yeah, and on the other level of sadhaka, still Kanishta is the other one that you mentioned. So again, there are degrees of that. And it's glorious to be a Kanishta on one level, but it's more glorious to not remain a Kanishta on another level. There are so many levels of glory. As Mahaprabhu say, 7 glories of Srinam, the first verse of Sikshastakam. The first one is embrace, clean your unconscious. Go and clean the shed. It doesn't sound so glorious, but it's glorious. Of course, if you go through the other stages, more and more and more, you know, these famous pastimes. Let's share that one. This story of Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, our Guru Maharaj likes to share that one with Srila Siddhar Maharaj. Once Srila Siddhar Maharaj was speaking about the 3 levels of Vaishnavas, Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, and he was giving examples of his god brothers regarding the activities that classically depict each of them, not pointing they are on that level, but they are engaged in activities that generally define someone in that category. Do you understand the difference? So we say Kanishta, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, because the Kanishta is generally connected to deity worship. And deity worship in the context, Krishna and myself, and I cannot go beyond that. I do not appreciate sadhus and so on. In that sense, you have to know Srila Sridhar Maharaj to understand what he was meaning there. He was not saying Puri Maharaj is a Kanishta Bhakta. He was saying the activity he's mostly known for is what generally defines a Kanishta Bhakta. He's not a Kanishta. But he said, Kanishta, Puri Maharaj. That was his way of saying that. Then he said, Madhyam, Bhakti Daita Madhava Maharaj, who was another famous disciple of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, who was well known by preaching and establishing centers and the discrimination required for preaching. And Uttam, say, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, like someone totally in power who is transplanting the whole tradition into an unknown land and adapting details in a genius-like way and so on. So the point here is that many disciples of Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj were in the lecture. Puri Maharaj himself sent them, go and hear from Srila Sridhar Maharaj, please. So they went and they were hearing Srila Sridhar Maharaj saying, Puri Maharaj, Kanishta. And they were like, what? I mean, he's calling our Gurudev Kanishta in front of everyone in the class. So they were like shocked. And on top of that, our Guru Maharaj sent us to hear that. And he's saying that. So they were like totally short-circuiting. You know? So you can imagine. So they returned, and they were not able to understand which was the point of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. They were Kanishtas, basically. Very nice devotees, but still naive. So they returned to Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, and he was waiting to hear about the Harikatha of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He was too old to go. He was almost 100 years old. But he wanted the report. What was the Katha about? So all the disciples came like. So he said, what's it? Share something of what Srila Sridhar Maharaj said. Because of Srila Puri Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj was his Siksha Guru, his immediate authority after Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, especially in that moment at the end of the life of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta, when Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta asked Srila Sridhar Maharaj, sing for me Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. Srila Sridhar Maharaj started to sing, but he was not well famous for being a great singer, but he was well known for being a great singer in another sense, a great kirtaniya in the real sense of the term. It doesn't mean you play harmonium and you know all these ragas up and down. It's like you're tearing apart your chest and pouring all your heart in kirtan. That's real kirtaniya, Sadahari. But someone stopped him because, again, he didn't have a very melodious voice. And someone told Srila Puri Maharaj, you sing the kirtan. He was known as a great kirtaniya in the other sense of the term, and every sense of the term. As Srila Puri Maharaj started to sing, Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta stopped him. Said, I don't want to hear a sweet voice. I want to hear Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So it is said that from that moment on, Srila Puri Maharaj accepted Srila Sridhar Maharaj in his heart and his immediate authority. So this moment speaks not only about who Srila Sridhar Maharaj was, but about how Srila Puri Maharaj was, because how he reacted. You follow? Try to imagine your guru is passing away and you start to sing and your guru stops you and say he has to sing. Maybe you will feel that he's my worst enemy for eternity. He took my chance of singing for my Gurudev in his deathbed. Whatever weird stuff. Srila Puri Maharaj at all thought like that. He just surrendered to Srila Sridhar Maharaj forever. That speaks about him. So similarly, in this story we are telling, when he asked the disciples, what did Srila Sridhar Maharaj say? All of them were like, he said that you are a Kanishta Adhikari, basically. They repeated like this, totally misunderstanding what he said, actually. And you know which was the reaction of Srila Puri Maharaj. Srila Puri Maharaj, he was almost 100 years. So you just, if you know him and you know his movements, how he moved his hands was already totally like moving. So he was like this and started like to put his hands above his head, like trembling, and say, well, Srila Sridhar Maharaj considers that I have some adhikar for bhakti. He started to pray and glorify Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He gave me adhikar for bhakti, because Kanishta adhikar is adhikar for bhakti. You have some adhikar, he considers I have some adhikar for, and he started like, oh, so genuine. So all his disciples were like, so they understood that's how an Uttam adhikari reacts. That was not confirming he's an kanishta. That was confirming he's an Uttam. He feels he's not even a kanishta. Really, it's not a show. He was not making a show. You know, Guru Maharaj, he's not making a show at any single moment. So some words are regarding, because it may seem that we are demonizing kanishta, but it's not like that. I mean, properly situated, you will even think, hopefully someday I'm there. Not as an excuse to not go further, but actually when you are there, you'll say, oh. Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Siyadeva Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Thakura Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Shri Nitsim Bhagavan ki jai, Gaur Bhaktavrim ki jai, Gaur Praman Panchakalpatarubhyascha Siddhanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Gaur Hari Gaur